So in today's video, I'll be going over all the mythic units from release to the solo level updates. So this video, there are quite a lot of units, so I'm gonna keep this intro really short. Leave a like and sub if you enjoy it. Also, I will be running through all of them pretty quick, so don't expect like in-depth showcases, and I'll be ranking them while I showcase them. So if you want to just like see the rankings, I believe you can skip to the end. Probably I'll put a timestamp for that, but I'm just doing the showcases just for like source material and all that. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video and let's get right into it. Starting off with unobtainable units from events, we have Piccolo, who was in the first event, the Dragon Ball event, and basically he's a full AoE ground unit. He's fire element and he has two passives. First off, we have pure power. Basically, after 40 eliminations, he gets 35% more damage and 25% more range for 45 seconds, and the cooldown is also 45 seconds. Next up, we have Shared Misery, which the first 5 units in his range basically gets 15% more burst damage. And honestly, Piccolo is pretty outdated, so I'm gonna rate him as. Next up, we have Grimjaw, and he's a Circle Splash AoE or Max upgrade. He has two passives: Scary Opportunist 1 plus 100% crit chance against Scar enemies, and Scary Opportunist 2, who basically he gets 25% more crit damage against Scar enemies. He's a light unit. He's also ground, and due to like just like him being ground. Now we have Tobirama, and he was the former bingo unit, but now he is unobtainable. And basically, he's pretty much a average circle splash AoE. He's a water unit. He is also ground. Almost all like the event units are ground. But yeah, he's also ground. He has an ability where he does ×4 his damage and applies slow. Honestly, overall, the only thing he's going for him is his damage, and that's pretty low. The next runner up on this list is gonna be Doma, and he's gotten from the winter. He was from the winter event, but that's over. He was gotten from the mythic presence, which you get in the game mode that was introduced then. His passive is Frost Demon, in which he applies frostbite effects on all attacks. Frostbite is basically like Scar, but it doesn't stop regeneration. It just like does tick damage to the enemies, and he doesn't really freeze. When he freezes, he doesn't like his freeze doesn't last long. His freeze stun doesn't last long. His ability makes him do 2.5 times his damage, and he applies frozen status effect for 5 seconds, and that's basically his only freeze. Like the only thing going for him on freeze. His damage his DPS is not really all that, but honestly, I'll give him a rating of. And now for the last unit for unobtainable event units, is gonna be Valentine, and he's a big circle AoE on max upgrade. He has two passives, Mr. President, in which this unit attacks after defeating 23 enemies. He covers himself and ally units with a barrier, and this barrier basically nullifies every negative effect on any of your units. And his next passive is Doppelganger, in which when this unit attacks, if 20 enemies are defeated on the map, he summons 3 clones with 3 times his unit's hit damage. So now that passive is not really like usable, because you basically have to kill 20 enemies while you probably keep him at the back, leaving him there, and then you basically when you leave. Honestly, he has pretty good damage. He's a ground unit, sadly, so I am going to go ahead and put him in probably. Now, these next set of units are going to be from the Blck Clover updates, and to start it off, we have Asta. He is a line AoE or max upgrade. He's hybrid. He doesn't start off hybrid, he starts off ground, but he becomes hybrid. These two passives are Anti-Magic Grimoire, the user of the anti-magic grimoire cannot be targeted by bosses. So basically, bosses don't stun him, and he instantly breaks shields. And Brotherhood, whenever Yami is in his range, he gets plus 20% more damage and minus 5% SPA. So I'm just gonna go ahead and place Yami here, just so you guys can see his buff damage. And as you can see, his DPS is not really all that, although I don't have a crazy trait on him. But for me, I'll say he's a pretty good unit, but he's heavily outdated. Yeah, that's the thing, he's just heavily outdated. So I'm gonna go ahead and put him in. Next up on the list is gonna be Yami, and he's also a line AoE, a thinner line than Asta. And this is basically his damage. He has two passives. He's a dark unit also. He becomes hybrid, and he basically buffs all dark type units in his range by 35% damage, and allies in his range get 15% more crit rate and 15% more crit damage. So basically, he's a good support for dark units, and I'm gonna put him in the support tier. And yeah, that's basically my rating for him. Next up, we have Yuno, who is a wind unit. He's hybrid on placement. He has a small circle AoE slash AoE. His two passes are Suffocating Gale, in which he basically slows down the enemies by 50% of their speed, and it lasts for 15 seconds and has a per enemy application cooldown. Okay, so basically once an enemy is slowed, he can't slow them again after 15 seconds until 50 seconds pass. Then we have Wind Spirit's Blessing. He deals 20% more damage to enemies infused by wind element. Basically, enemies that have like wind buff against them, you're only gonna find them in infinite waves and all that, but normal gameplay you won't really see them. And he gives wind element units in his range 15% more damage. So he's a buffer, and yeah, I'm just gonna straight up put him in support because he buffs wind units and he also slows. So I'm gonna put him in support tier. He's not really good outside that. DPS wise, he's not good. So yeah, I'm leaving him in support tier also. Now we have Noelle. She's a line AoE heal unit, and she has two passives: Royal Family, in which she gets 100% more yen from enemies, and summons Tsunami. After 30 seconds, she summons a tsunami that slows down the enemies by 20% and makes them take more damage, take 15% more damage from her attacks. So basically, she was meta when she came out, but honestly, right now she's only good for multi-path. She's only good for multi-path like stages, and outside that, her DPS is terrible. She's probably used as a slow, basically a support unit at this point, because there are many like better units. But because of that, I'm gonna rate her in B tier. Another Blck Clover unit that we have is Lit, and he is basically a light unit. He's full AoE and pretty much summons. As you can see, he summons on every kill. Let's go over his passives. All light type units in his range get 20% more damage, so he's a buffer. And light mimicry, basically he summons, he has a 35% chance to summon an enemy with 80% health, and it caps at 10 times the health. So yeah, basically full AoE hybrid units on max upgrade. And honestly, he is useful for beginners. He's heavily power crept also. All these units are heavily power crept right now, so basically it's up to you to actually summon for them if you're a beginner. But as a beginner, he is definitely a good unit, very good unit. Still summons hits like air units and all that. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. Locke is a Blck Clover unit that stuns. He has a line AoE. He has two passives: Electrified Mana, in which he stuns every 3 seconds. Wheel of Thunder, in which when he recovers from stun, he gains 25% more damage and less SPA for 20 seconds. Honestly, on placement, his stun is actually like in sync with his SPA. So I would argue that he's a pretty good support if you wanna like stun. But overall, he's a ground unit. I won't really rate him much that high because he's not really useful. Going into the winter units, we have Urane first off, and she is a circle AoE. She's a heal unit and she's 4 placements. Basically, She's from the winter event, the winter update, and she has 2 passives. Each attack freezes the enemy for 3 seconds, and her second passive is Ice Rain. This unit damages enemies in range for 35% of her damage each 45 seconds. So basically, she attacks twice after every 45 seconds. So basically, I'm gonna put her in the support tier because she's a very good freeze. Although Aokiji is better than her, but she's very good. She's very good at freezing, even though it's just 3 seconds. But I'm just gonna place her in support tier because aside from that, you're not using her for anything else. If she wasn't in support tier, I'll place her in C tier. Now going into Aokiji, he's full AoE. He becomes hybrid. He starts on ground and becomes hybrid. He's full AoE. His first passive is Icebreaker, in which he does 35% more damage to enemies under frozen status effects. And his second passive is Ice Spears, in which every 5th attack, he basically does 150% of his current damage and freezes the enemies for 5 seconds. So yeah, he's probably the best freeze unit from this update, and probably the best freeze unit in the whole game because he's hybrid, full AoE, and yeah, very good support. I'm gonna put him in support here mainly because of that. Next on the list is Moichiro, and as you can see, he's a ground unit, wind element, and he only has 1 passive, but his passive doesn't work. He basically like gets more damage when you stun him, but it doesn't work. So yeah, I can't really base him off his passive. Obviously these units are power crept, so I'm gonna just straight up put. Final unit for this update is going to be Tashiro. Now he can be placed on hills and also on ground. Let me just showcase that real quick. So he's basically a hybrid, but you can place him on both like stuff. And let's go into his passive. He's a hybrid unit, true hybrid. That's basically the ability that I showed you. You can place him on the ground and on hills. Then Ice Shatter, he does 25% more damage to enemies under frozen status effects and deals 15% damage each second for 5 seconds. So yeah, basically he only shines if you have freeze units on the map, if you have freeze units in your team, and aside from that, he's pretty mid. So I'm gonna place. Starting us off with the Dandadan units, we have Spiral, and he's basically a heal unit, water element. He has a big circle AoE, splash AoE, and his only passive is Alien Technology 2, in which he does 110% more damage to heavy foes. Now, I believe heavy foes are enemies that have like red on their name, like Guardian dudes. I believe that's what it is. I'm not sure. Don't take my word on that. But he's a very good unit for basically beginners. Like the Dandadan units, most of them are like very good for beginners. He's one of the very good starter units that you can, if you see him on the banner, you should summon for him to start off in the game. And yeah, I'm gonna rate him in B tier. Following up, we have Momo from another Dandadan unit. She ends off with a big circle AoE, and she has 3 passives. Her first passive is Psychic Surge. She does 30% more damage to elite foes, and Psychic Connection is her second one. Every 40 seconds, boss range of all units. This passive is only for if you have like Okarun, the secret unit from Portals, and her last is True Sight. This unit is able to see shade enemy types. I believe shade enemy types are only found in the Dandadan Infinite. Basically, they are units that basically become immune to any attack. So she basically is able to attack them. They go invisible, but she's able to attack them. And yeah, she's also one of the very good starter units, I would say. So yeah, I'm gonna put her also in B tier with the Spiral Alien. Now we have Shrimpy, Mr. Shrimpy. Basically he's a ground fierce unit, circle AoE. This is like this is the most common thing. Like most of them are circle AoEs. But yeah, let's go on to his passive, Shrimp Boxing 2. Every 5th attack, he deals 40% critical chance hit, dealing 125% more critical damage. So basically, he's a very good critter. That's basically what he's saying. He has a very good crit passive. overall, I'm gonna rate him in. Yeah, so the next unit on the list is Ira. She's also a circle splash AoE, very big, decently sized circle AoE, and she becomes hybrid. She starts off as ground and becomes hybrid. Her passive is Power Roll 2. She selects a random buff pool every 60 seconds. Either she gets 20% more damage to speed enemies, 20% damage to flying enemies, or 20% damage to shield enemies. And as I said, shield enemies are basically only found in the Dandadan Infinite. They can't be found anywhere else. But overall, she has decent damage. I'd say she's a good like starter unit to get. Although I don't know, yeah, I'll say she's a good starter unit to get since she heads on hybrid. But yeah, I'm gonna place her in B tier also, just cause she's hybrid on max upgrade and she's going to be good for starters. And the last unit from this update is gonna be Granny Seiko. I have Miracle on her, so I'm not judging her based on her DPS right now. But basically, she's a very good support unit for fire element teams. That's basically what her passive is about. The lowest fire element units with the fire element unit that has the least amount of elimination gets a 35% damage and range damage boost. Yeah, she boosts the damage and range boost, I believe. Is that it? No, it's a damage boost. Sorry that I'm confusing myself. But yeah, she also has an ability that makes anyone inside her domain. Basically, it's a domain ability. Let me just pop it. Yeah, so anybody who walks into this domain gets 30% incoming damage. So this is basically like the weak point effect, but it's an ability. So yeah, that's why I said she's a very good support for fire elements units. That's basically what she's very good for. I have Miracle on her, so don't be deceived by her damage. But yeah, very good support units. I'll definitely put her in the support tier. And let's move on to the next set of units. Alright, going into the Bleach update. This is where the power creep actually started. Like, this is where units started getting like power creeps and all that. But yeah, the power gap starts to increase from here. We're starting off with Coyote. He becomes hybrid. He's a water unit. He starts off ground, becomes hybrid, and he has two passives. Wolfpack. Having 2 or more units in range will give all of them plus 5% crit damage and 15% crit chance. Okay. And then his second passive, Metraleta. Every 10 hits, his next attack will deal 2 times damage while applying permanent bleed. Also gains 1% crit damage each time this passive is used. Alright, so basically he's a very good critter and he's a good support unit. He's basically a support DPS. So I'm gonna put him in the support tier, but I'll also like give him a rating if I want to rate him as a DPS unit, and I'll probably say I'll put him in A tier, because this is where the damage is their damage is accurate. Let's move on to the next unit.
We must never speak of this again. Agree.
And now the next unit that I'll be going over is Aizen Hobyoku. Basically, this is the banner unit that was released. There's another Aizen that is a secret, but this is the banner one. He has a very huge circle AoE, and his damage is very good. I say he's a very good unit, but the problem is that his DPS, his SPA at the start is very long. Like this, it's the same for like all Bleach units. Their SPAs are very long. This is where they drop like the craziest SPAs. So I'm gonna say he's not really good. Beginner wise, do not summon for Bleach units. Beginner wise, don't summon for them. These are like end game units. He's very good end game. Let's go over his passives. Kanzen Simon. After 20 eliminations, he will apply Dark Flames, which is a tick DOT effect. And next passive is Overwhelming Spiritual Pressure. The closer the enemies, the more damage they'll take, up to 20% more damage. Yeah. So basically, it's a very good unit, good AoE, everything good. I'm gonna rate him S tier just because he's actually very good. Honestly, I wanted to take him down for if you are able to max him out, he's definitely very good. He's very good end game mainly. Now we have Yurichi, and she is a ground unit, sadly, light, has a very big circle AoE. She applies stun for a few seconds, but let's go over her passive first. Enemies attacked for the first time will take 10% more damage while being stunned for 2 seconds. So that's a 2-second like stun. And Utsushimi, killing an enemy will give a minus 50% SPA buff for 2.5 seconds. Cooldown is 10 seconds. Alright, so that actually, like, she basically doesn't need Anubis on her, but yeah, she's very fast at attacking. Sadly, she's a ground unit. She would have been S tier if she was ground, but I'm gonna put her in A tier just because she's ground. She has very good DPS and she's 3 placements, so yeah, very good units, just that she's ground. I'm gonna put her in A tier just because she has good damage. Let's go on to the next one. Now the next unit on our list is gonna be Belle, and she has 2 passes. She's an ice unit, ground. She stays ground, sadly. Her SPA becomes better. She's also one of the units that have terrible placement SPAs. Basically, Aizen and her have bad like placements, even including Coyote. They have bad placement SPAs, but when you max them out, they are pretty good. But let's go on to her passives. Ichigo, if placed near Ichigo, we'll have stun immunity for the next 20 seconds. Alright, and then Zero double. Every fifth hit, our next attack will have 100% crit chance plus 100% crit damage. She also has a stun immunity on placement. Okay, so our first passive becomes irrelevant after you evolve her. She's immune to stuns, although she's ground though. I'm gonna rate her. I'm gonna put her in the A tier just because she's also a very powerful ground. Don't mind the fact that I have Paladin on her. She's a very powerful ground, and just because she's ground, I can't put her in S tier. So I'm gonna put her in A tier because her damage is pretty good and she's just ground. Her only backlash is that she's just ground. Now the final batch of units from the solo leveling update. We have Choi, who is a heal unit. He's 2 placements, and he starts off with, and he ends off with a big circle AoE attack, and his passive is Infernal Fury, in which he just basically does burn. That's the only thing about him. For me, I rate him A tier because his burn is actually very good, his damage is good, his DPS is good, and his range is OP. So yeah, I'm giving him A tier just because he's way better than the units that I put in the lower tiers. So yeah, that's why I'm rating him A tier. The next unit I'll be going over is Metal. He's a legendary unit with 2 evils because of the Songjinwoo, like he's one of Songjinwoo's shadows. But yeah, he ends off on a line AoE. He's a ground unit, water element, and his passive is enhanced durability. The user cannot be stunned and their hammer instantly breaks shields. So he's a very good shield breaker, although he's just ground, and he has very good DPS. So I'm gonna rate him in probably A tier because I can't put him in B. I low-key want to put him in B because he's a ground unit, but honestly, with his damage, I'm gonna put him in A tier because he's a very high DPS ground unit. So let's move on to the next unit. Next up, we have Tusk General. He has 2 evils. So yeah, most of the Songjinwoo's shadow units have 2 evils. He ends off in big line AoE, and his single passive is Hymn of Fate. Each hit, one of the status effects will proc on the enemies: burn, slow, or stun. So you can either burn, slow, or stun. Basically, he is a support unit. Because honestly, his support is like pretty picky though. But I don't think it's don't last too long. As you can see, it only lasted like 1 or 2, like it only lasted like 1 or 2 seconds. It didn't even last up to 2 seconds. But huge line AoE. Honestly, he's not really all that good. He has a full AoE attack, and honestly, I'm gonna put him in B tier. Yeah, cause his Loki, his support is terrible. I believe there are better units. He's hybrid though, so I'm gonna leave him in A tier. I'm gonna give him A tier. And now for Chae Ian, she's a ground unit that becomes hybrid, the same as Tusk. Tusk also is a ground unit that becomes hybrid, but she's a ground unit that becomes hybrid. She's a very good crit. Like she basically crits 50% crit chance. She has 50% crit chance and 75% crit damage. So basically every 2 attacks she's gonna guarantee a crit from the percentage. That's how I feel it is gonna be. But yeah, she's gonna be critting a lot, and she's a hybrid unit, cone AoE or max upgrade, very good DPS. Like her damage may seem lower than others, but look at her DPS. Her SP is very short, and yeah, overall I'm gonna give her S tier. Alright, so now we have Bukyun Ha. He's a ground unit. He's probably the only, yeah, he's a ground unit, line AoE. He has a thinner line than Tusk and the rest. He's a fire element unit, but he doesn't do any burn. But let's go ahead and look at his passive, Tiger Transformation. After 25 eliminations, he gains 18% damage buff, negative 18 SPA, and this lasts for 20 seconds. So yeah, he's a ground unit, very good DPS. That's the thing. He has a very good DPS. But since he's ground, I'm gonna rate him in A tier. On the tier list that I did, this is the final tier list. I made some arrangements, so if you watch the showcases, don't take my ratings seriously. But yeah, this is basically how the tier list is. Meta is basically very good units. I'll also put Gun and Krolo in there because they're actually good metas. I will do a part 2 of this so I can add the remaining other mythic units. But firstly, let me explain myself. V is absolute trash, C is better than trash, B is basically beginner friendly. Every unit here is beginner friendly. So if you're a starter, if you are starting the game, then these units are the units you can go for. Then supports, then A is basically above average or probably like around the average, but near average. S is above, like very good, and Meta explains himself. But yeah, I might want to move Valentine down to B, but basically the 4 of them, the only reason why they're here is because the 5 of them, in fact, the reason why all 5 of them are there is just because they are good ground units. Like they're like the strongest ground units in the game. So yeah, I believe this is my ending tier list. If you guys have arguments on it, you can comment it down below. The video is already getting as long as it is. Release units, all of them are trash. That's why I didn't even bother getting their PFPs. But yeah, if you guys found the video helpful, leave a like and sub, and that's it from me.